It's your fault that they're calling me stinky at school. Why are you even a janitor? You stink. Stay away from me. My son started verbally abusing me around the time he was about to enter middle school next year. I guess he was probably being teased at school because I worked as a janitor. My name is Kathy Anderson. I was 34 at the time, and my son was 12. My husband passed away due to an illness shortly after our son started elementary school. To raise my son, I started working at a cleaning company. My son was a kind kid who often helped me, but in elementary school, he started to change gradually as he was ridiculed for my job. When he entered middle school, he started hanging out with kids who were not well liked, even getting caught playing outside at night. I was frequently called to the school due to his misconduct. Raising a child as a single mother was tougher than I had thought. But by his third year in middle school, his bad behavior stopped abruptly and he began to focus on studying. It seemed he was scared straight after witnessing his friends get caught by the police for shoplifting. I don't want to live a bottom-of-the-barrel life like you. I'm going to study, graduate from a good university, and lead an elite life by getting a job at a reputable company, he began to say. While I had mixed feelings about his words, I was relieved that he had finally started to show some motivation. I thought the priority was to let him focus on his studies. It was indeed joyous to see him entering a good high school and studying hard. And so my son was admitted to the high school he had hoped for. I was truly delighted. The high school my son attended was private, and both the admission fee and tuition were far from cheap, but I managed to cover them by increasing my shifts and tightening my budget.
Hey, what's with this pathetic meal? I need to eat more nutritious things, you know. Give me better meat.
I'm sorry, I'm doing my best, but paying the tuition is all I can manage.
Then work harder. You're just feeding me this cheap food? Are you even my parent? It's a parent's duty to support their child.
His verbal abuse got worse after he entered high school. Perhaps because many of his classmates came from wealthy families, he might have felt miserable about his own circumstances. To spare my son any embarrassment, I cut back on my own spending, buying nothing for myself and using everything I had for him. Although he's abusive now, I believe he will understand when he grows up. Remembering how kind he was in elementary school, I spurred myself on.
I'm going to study abroad when I go to college.
Huh?
I want to go for about a year, so I'll need around $30,000 to $40,000.
That much?
You're not going to say you can't afford it, right? It's a parent's duty to fulfill their child's wishes. Don't use poverty as an excuse.
I understand. However, if he goes to university, there will be more tuition fees. How could I possibly come up with the money for studying abroad? Even now, my life is already on a tightrope. So I asked the cleaning company to switch me to an early morning shift, and then started working at a 24-hour supermarket late at night. I worked at the cleaning company from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., went home to prepare dinner for my son and do household chores, and then worked at the supermarket from 5 p.m. to midnight. On the days when the cleaning company was closed, I filled in part-time at the supermarket, working without a day off. In doing so, my son was able to enroll in a well-known private university he had wished for. Since I only graduated high school, I was happy that my son could go to university. In his second year, he went abroad to study. The university fees were substantial, so I could not cover all the study abroad expenses from savings and had to take out a loan. Life abroad seemed to cost a lot, and I often got requests for money from my son. But I thought it was pitiful to let him struggle in a foreign country, so I kept sending him money even though it meant accumulating debt. After a year, he successfully completed his study abroad and returned home, although it meant delaying his college graduation by a year. My son came back and immediately started asking for spending money again. Hey Derek, you're a college student now. Couldn't you get a part-time job?
Huh? You think it's okay for your kid to work and have fun? Unbelievable.
I don't mean it like that, but couldn't you try to earn your own spending money?
I have my studies. That's a student's job. If I took on a part-time job, I wouldn't be able to properly job hunt. Do you want to ruin your kid's future as a parent? This is why I can't stand people with a low level of education.
I'm sorry. My son was the same as ever, but I was relieved to be able to get him through college safely. He got a job at a pretty well-known company, and it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Once he started working, he finally stopped asking for spending money, which made life much easier. But the debts from his college and study abroad were still there, so I kept working day and night. After 4 years of him working, I was almost done paying off the debt. My son never contributed any money to the house, but I managed. I tried talking to him about contributing a little if he's going to live here, but he said,
You expect your child to give you money? Being a working adult means having social obligations, and it costs money. You, a cleaner, and I, who work at a large company, are not the same.
So I never mentioned it again. It's tiring to argue like this every time I say something. Maybe by this time I was used to living like this and didn't find working day and night too hard. But unknowingly, maybe my body was screaming for a break. I was probably pretending not to notice. One day, while I was cleaning a certain building, I saw my son coming out of the elevator. I inadvertently called out to him, "Derek!" When he saw me, my son made a very annoyed face.
Huh? Who are you?
Excuse me?
I don't know any dirty old woman like you. Don't talk to me so casually. It's annoying.
Derek! It was a huge shock to be yelled at by my son like that. My son didn't even look at me properly and quickly left the scene. That night, after finishing my late night shift and returning home, my son, who should have been sleeping, was up drinking beer in the kitchen. As soon as he saw me, he shouted at me like he had been waiting for me.
Hey, old woman, what are you thinking?
What are you talking about?
Why did you call out to me in a place like that? That's a crucial business partner for my company.
Is that so? I've been cleaning that building for a long time. What a coincidence.
Listen, even if you see me, don't call out to me. It's shameful if people find out my mom is a janitor. Don't embarrass me.
Embarrassing? I've been raising you like this.
What? Do you think you can sell me a favor with that?
I don't mean it like that.
Anyway, if you see me outside, we're strangers. Don't casually talk to me. It's a shame for me if people know someone like you is my parent.
It was quite a shock. I had been working day and night like a workhorse for the sake of my son, never expecting him to say something like this. I had been hoping that one day he would change, but now it felt like that day would never come. As I worked with these thoughts in my mind, I slowly started to feel faint. When I came to, I was lying in a hospital bed. The doctor told me it was due to overworking.
You seem to have accumulated a great deal of fatigue. You've been pushing yourself too hard, haven't you?
Did I pass out?
Your colleagues were worried. They said you always work too hard, Mrs.
I see. I ended up staying in the hospital for about a month for recovery. Of course the hospital staff contacted my son, but not once did he visit me during that time. But my colleagues took turns visiting me in the hospital, which was very encouraging. The person who rushed to see me first when he heard I collapsed was Mr. John Harrison. He is a kind person who always praises my work and is considerate of me. He had lost his wife early and raised his daughter as a single father. We had similar circumstances and we started talking a lot. You've done really well until now. I think it's time for you to take it easy. When Mr. John said that, I couldn't help but shed tears. It felt like all the feelings of being unrecognized and misunderstood that I had been holding inside were melting away. I realized that I had been stuck in the mindset that I have to work hard all this time. A month later, when I was discharged from the hospital, my usual daily life was waiting for me. But I had stopped expecting anything from my son, so I felt a bit lighter. Although I didn't speak to my son much, one day he told me he was getting married. The partner was the daughter of a high-ranking official at the company he was dealing with. That's wonderful.
Well, it's natural for a man like me. After all, I graduated from a top university, studied abroad, and am working for a top company.
I wanted to say, who do you think paid for all that, but decided not to say anything unnecessary. Saying anything wouldn't change my son. There is nothing to gain from an unproductive argument.
But you don't have to come to the wedding.
Huh?
It would be embarrassing to have a parent like you come, so I decided to rent a parent.
What do you mean by rent a parent?
See, it's an era where you can even rent a family. If I can have someone who looks much richer than you attend as my mother, it would make me look good.
You're having someone else attend as your mother?
That's far better than you coming.
So that's what you thought.
Of course. You are not suitable for a top-class man like me. Don't come to the wedding as a poor, low-class person who scrapes by.
Okay, then I don't care about you anymore.
I'm going to move out of this house once I get married, and I'll never come back. I'm cutting ties with you.
Okay, if that's what you want, I don't mind.
Well, with that settled, I'll finally be free of having to see your poor face ever again.
With that, my son announced his plan to move to his new place a week before his wedding and left. I said nothing and merely watched as he walked away. I thought at last everything was over. There was still one concern I had, but I didn't share it with my son. Little did I know how it would unfold. On the wedding day, my son called me incessantly, like a madman. Being quite busy, I initially decided not to answer, but his relentless calling left me with no choice.
What the hell are you doing? Pick up the phone straight away. Not like you have any serious business anyway.
I'm actually quite busy, so what's up? Isn't today your wedding day?
Yeah, that's why I'm calling you. Get over here right now.
Huh? What are you talking about?
I'm inviting you to my wedding. Be grateful and come now.
You don't want to see a poor person like me again, do you? Wouldn't you be embarrassed if I attended? You got a stand-in, didn't you?
Quit the chatter and just come. You'll get to see your son in his glory.
As I said, I'm busy. I don't have time to attend such a thing.
Such a thing?
Yes, so goodbye. As I was about to hang up, my son stopped me in a panic, his voice desperate.
You wouldn't happen to know a guy named John, would you? The CEO of the company where my bride's father works?
Why so?
He approached me all smiles, saying he owed you a lot.
Oh, you mean John Harrison?
Yes, him. He's the guest of honor today. He said, I'm overjoyed that my precious employee's daughter is marrying Kathy's son.
Oh, I'm quite familiar with John.
Really? How do you know the CEO of such a big company?
I told you before, didn't I? I work as a cleaner in John's company.
That building?
John is the CEO of the building where I met my son at work. He's a wonderful boss who cares for each and every one of his employees and is even friendly to us cleaners. We got talking when I once returned something he had left behind at the washstand while I was cleaning the toilet.
How come you're friendly with the CEO of a big company while you're just a janitor?
We found out that we're both single parents and found a lot in common.
And then he asked why you weren't there. He said, you wouldn't neglect to invite your mother, would you?
Why not introduce him to the stand-in mom?
He knows what you look like. It'll give us away.
Oh, really?
It's not, oh, really? Just get over here now.
I told you I'm not going. Ever since he found out that I raised my son alone, he's been quite caring and a good listener. When my son told me the name of his fiance's father's company, I was truly surprised. I never dreamed that my son would marry the daughter of an executive working for John's company. I had already told John about this. and also that my son had rejected the idea of me coming to the wedding. John then told me he had a good idea and asked me not to tell my son about our acquaintance until the wedding day.
You gotta come or I'll look bad. You're going around telling folks how you struggled to raise me all by yourself. And then everyone's like, you gotta thank your mom or something.
And what about you, Derek? Thanking me?
Are you nuts? Parents are supposed to raise their kids. Why should I have to be grateful for that? But this is making me look like a chump. It's your job as a parent to fix this. Get over here and brag about how I am such a good son to everyone.
Hearing that makes me want to go even less.
What? Are you even a parent?
What goes around comes around. You're not a child anymore. Take responsibility for yourself. Parents aren't all powerful, and I'm not your parent anymore. With that, I hung up the phone. John was asked to give a speech as the guest of honor at the wedding. Later, he said he gave a great speech with a smile on his face. Someone had recorded the speech, and John showed it to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, his mother has tirelessly raised her son, Derek, single-handedly, day and night. She even took out loans to pay for his college and study abroad, while Derek never worked a part-time job and kept demanding money from her. Now a fine working adult, he never contributes a dime at home and keeps spouting nastiness. On this fine day, he even told her not to come to his wedding because she would embarrass him. Let's give a big round of applause for our outstanding groom.
There was John speaking loudly. My son on stage was pale as a ghost. The bride next to him turned beet red and was visibly shaking. She then took a wine bottle and drenched my son's head. "You ungrateful wretch!" The bride's scream was loud and clear. She held the sides of her dress and stormed out. There was a chorus of boos from the guests, and my son was not only drenched in wine, but was also a mess with tears and snot all over his face. His white tuxedo was soaked and stained red. Seeing my son like that didn't make me feel anything. It felt like I was watching a farce that had nothing to do with me. Naturally, the wedding was called off. There were many guests from the company and clients invited to the wedding, so the news of what happened at the ceremony spread like wildfire. I heard he began to receive cold stares both inside and outside the office. It seems he eventually quit his job due to the hostile environment, but the details of the wedding went viral on social media, and he couldn't find another because of it. After his bride left, he couldn't afford to pay the rent for their new home, and I heard he was evicted. About a month later, I received a call from a public phone.
"Mom, where are you right now?"
Who is this? I don't recall having a son who would call me Mom.
"It's me, Derek."
Oh, I do recall knowing someone by that name in the past.
"What are you talking about? It's my fault. Please help me. I don't have a job, can't pay the wedding expenses. I don't have a place to live. When I came home, you weren't there and someone else was living there."
Oh, I moved from the old house. The day of your wedding day was moving day, remember? That's why I said I was busy.
"Where did you move to?"
There's no need for me to tell you. You're a stranger now.
"I'm living in a park now."
A park? Did you become homeless?
"Yes, I'm living off picking up cans."
You, who look down on janitors, are now picking up cans? That's a pity.
"Don't you feel sorry for me?"
Not at all. We're no longer related. Please never contact me again. Goodbye.
"But..."
I hung up. After that, he never called again. He might not have money to make calls anymore, but it's not my concern. I have no intention of ever seeing or getting involved with him again. Later on, I got remarried to John. His daughter, who had already married and moved out, was very happy about our marriage. From now on, just the two of us are planning to live our second lives happily as a couple.